Come back to my channel, and in the first part of this tutorial we'll be programming our roughing operations on this part, and I'm going to talk about multi-axis pocketing and how you can control your tool axis during the roughing. As a machine, I selected mill default. My stock setup is 300 diameter by 200 mil long cylinder. And my XYZ is in the center of the bottom of this 3D model. Okay. I'm going to switch off visibility of my chuck, and I created level number 1 and named it roughing, and I want to create some extra geometry. I'm going to create a cap because I want this part to be roughed inside as well, but I don't need this to go all the way down. Okay, only maybe 10 mil below the level of this face here. Okay, so let's create the surface on level 1 roughing, and remember to be on the 2D construction plane, and I'm going to set my Z of the plane to be on the specific height. So first left click on the Z value, then in the window click right mouse button and select Z coordinate of a point. And I'm going to select the bottom edge of that internal bore. And now, as you can see, Mastercam updated the height of the construction plane to be 73 from the bottom face or from the WCS. So I'm going to take off 10 millimeter because I want to go a little bit deeper. So that gives us 63 millimeter, which is exactly 10 millimeter below this face here. And because we are using 2D, everything we select will go to 63 mil Z depth. Okay, so somewhere here. Okay, and with that level active here, I'm going to surfaces, wireframe, curve one edge. I'm going to create a curve on this edge here. So as you see, because we are on the 2D mode, I created that wireframe geometry from curve one edge on that height here. Okay, so now I can go to click OK, I can go to surfaces, and I can go and create flat boundary. Okay, click that, select with left mouse button this circle wireframe and hit OK. So as you see, the arrow is pointing up the way, okay, towards the top of the part, and this is what I want. Select OK. So we have our surface created, we have machine, we have stock setup, and what else I want to do is in the tool paths, I want to go to tool manager, and I'm going to add the tools. So in the link under this video in the description, you can download all the files, so a chuck, the tool library, and also the 3D model of the part. So I'm going to select Shield Support, Tooling, click Open. I'm going to select all of them and move them to the machine group. Okay, so now all these tools from that library are available for me in this machine group. And now we are ready to set our first roughing operation. So we are going to use multi-axis pocketing, and in the first example I want to create roughing operation where all the cuts are parallel to this surface here. So we'll be roughing without any rotation, so we'll be roughing the part from the top all the way down, and our tool will be normal to this face here. Okay, So from multi-axis gallery, select pocketing. And as my roughing tool, I'm going to use a 20mm slot drill with 2mm rad. We have already holder pre-selected. Stock, I'm going to use a stock, and I'm going to use job setup. So this is the stock we set up here. Okay, and I want my collision control to be against shoulder shank and holder. I want to check those parts of the tool for collision. In the cut pattern, I'm going to select the whole 3D model with triple click, and also I'm going to add that surface I created here, this plug that we created. Okay, my floor geometries, I'm going to use this and this. Okay, so these are my floors. And if you have strategy offset from floor, all my cuts for my roughing operation will be normal to those selected faces. And as I mentioned, strategy offset from floor, this is what control the tool axis. So the tool will be always normal to the floor, and also each depth level will be parallel to those faces. And I want to use a machine pattern roughing, and because it's a roughing, I'm going to leave stock on machining geometries of 0.2mm, and I want to keep my tool away from the floor 0.3mm. I'm going to change the strategy type to offset, and I want to go one way only. Okay, and you have also two other methods, zigzag and spiral, and direction of the cut I want climb. You can, if you need, you can switch to conventional. Machine by, I want my cuts to be sorted by levels. Okay, so in one Z depth, everything where possible, then you move to the next depth, so level by level. If you have multiple pockets and you're roughing part where you have various or few different pockets, you can change it to be to regions, and then it will machine rough one pocket complete before moving to the next one. If you do by levels, it will machine first level and move to the next one, first level, and so on. In our example, I want to use by levels. I'm not going to change those settings here. And in a depth step, I want my constant depth step to be 25mm with maximum step over to be 12mm. So 12mm distance, maximum distance between each pass. Okay, and to rough the part closer to the shape, I don't want to go I don't want to have 25mm step here, so I'm going to add some intermediate cuts. So add some cuts between those depth steps. Okay, so press on this plus here, depth step, and activate intermediate slices. And I want to machine those intermediate slices after machining the last depth. So we'll rough the part in big depth steps to the maximum depth, and then after last depth step we will go and rough the part using those intermediate slices. And I want my constant depth step to be 25 by 4, 6.25mm. So as I mentioned, because it's a roughing, there is nothing to control your tool axis, and the tool axis is being controlled by the floor, by the shape of the floor. So as you see on this example, my floor is like 2D face, okay, flat face. So all my cuts will be, because we have cut pattern based on the floor, offset from floor, all my cuts will be 2D motion. It's still 5-axis code, but all of them are going to be in 2D. Collision control. I'm going to check collision against machine geometries, so again against all the faces that I selected, and also against in-process stock. That means Mastercam will keep the clearance of the holder, shank and shoulder away from the material that is going to be left over during the roughing. Linking, I'm going to leave those as default here, and I'll keep distances as 10, 10, 10 and 20 for rapid distance. And the roughing, I want Mastercam to allow tool outside the stock because we are roughing it from outside. I'm okay with the tool to be outside the stock. I'm going to change entry feed rate to 1000 and 4,500 here. And approach moves I'm going to set as automatic. And this is all ready. So press OK, and I'm going to pause the video and you will see the result. Okay, and this is our tool path. Okay, so as you see, each level is parallel to the floor that we selected. Okay, and all the cuts are XYZ motion. There is no rotation or no A, B or C axis movement, depend on the machine you're using. So as you see here on the verify, all my cuts are parallel to the floor, and all our cuts are to the only X, Y and Z movements. Okay. And this is how the part looks like after roughing, after first roughing. So in this example, we are going to set another pocketing operation and we will rough out only this pocket here. Okay, so let's select pocketing from Multiaxis gallery application section. I'm going to use 20mm slot drill on the stock page. This time I'm not going to use any stock, so I'm going to take the tick off from the stock. I'm going to control everything via cutting page. So let's move to the cut pattern page, and straight away I'm going to change my stock to leave on the floor to 0.2mm, as this is how much I want to leave for finishing. Now we have to tell Mastercam what we want to machine, and double click on one of the faces of the pocket to select the entire pocket, and click End Selection. And we're going to select now floor geometry and select the bottom, highlight the bottom of the pocket. Okay. And now, and this time, I'm not going to offset my strategy from the floor. I'm going to morph it between the ceiling and the floor. Okay. And Mastercam asks us what is our ceiling. And I'm going to select outside diameter as my ceiling. Okay, and you don't have to create any surfaces or any geometry to cover the pocket. Mastercam just want to know what is the shape of the ceiling and what is the height, where is that ceiling. At the moment we have the strategy to be morphed between the ceiling, so between that and the floor. In this case, our tool axis control will be driven by the ceiling geometry at the beginning, and it will morph into the floor geometry on its final cut. So basically on its first depth, our tool axis will be normal to the ceiling geometry, so to the shape of our ceiling. And in the last depth or last layer of the cut, our tool axis will be normal to the floor geometries. Okay, so I want my constant depth step to be 10 millimeters, and I'm going to leave machining step over to be 12 millimeters between each pass. Okay, I'm not going to leave any rest rough and any containment. So the tool axis control, we still have nothing. So in this scenario, we will control our tool path by morphing from the sailing shape into the floor shape. Okay, collision control, I don't need any collision control in this area. I'm going to leave default settings on this page. You can set ramping if you want. On the roughing page, I'm going to remove the tick from allow tool outside the stock. If you allow tool outside stock, you can change the stock clearance, entry feed rate, and also you can change the entry spindle speed. Okay, let's leave it for now and let's see our tool path. I'm going to pause the video for the regeneration time, so you'll see the results straight away. And this is our tool path. So let's go to planes and let's do the section from the back, and I can see clearly now my tool path. So first cut, first level, is the shape of the sailing. Okay, and the last one is the shape of the floor. And this is how your tool axis is controlled during the roughing operation when you morph from sailing to floor. So now on the screen you can see the passes for the first depth. Okay, so this is our first level, and you can clearly see that it has the shape of the sailing. Also, tool axis is normal to the sailing during the first level. And after morphing, the last depth is the shape of the floor, and the tool axis is controlled by the floor and it is normal to the floor. Also, if you want your part to be roughed closer to the shape of your 3D model or of your finished part, you can add some intermediate slices, and in this way, after your main cuts, you can machine your walls in the smaller step downs. And this is a good way to pre-finish your wall or prepare your walls if you have lots of angled walls for your finishing operation. This will give you the good base for your finishing tool. Okay, so with our next tool path, I'm going to show you how to set your pre-finishing operation. And we are going to pre-finish this floor here. And again, the purpose of this tutorial is to show you what you can do with your multi-axis pocketing toolpath. It's just to present to you how you can target certain areas and what you can do to tell Mastercam what features you want to machine and to target only features you want on your 3D model to be machined. And for this up, I'm going to use 20mm slot drill. In the stock page, this time I'm going to control the area of the cut by using stock, and I'm going to use user selected geometry. Now activate this, press the selection button, and I'm going to select only the floor here that I'm going to machine. And selection, and I'm going to use a stock adjustment, and I want to expand my stock. And I'm going to add 0.5 millimeter. This way Mastercam will create 0.5 mm layer of stock on top of that selected face, and we'll use it to calculate roughing operation. Now on the cut pattern page, I'm going to describe my part definition, and let's start with machining geometries. So I'm going to select the whole 3D model except those two pockets, except the closed pocket here, and accept this front open pocket. Double click. Oh, it doesn't work, so I have to manually select all the faces. I'm going to cut out a bit. Okay, so I've got all these faces around those pockets, and you don't have to, but I'm going to deselect internal faces on the board. Okay, you can leave them on. Okay, and the back face. Okay, so these are my machining geometries, and as you see, I left all the features on top of that machining face selected, so Mastercam will be aware where are some other faces to avoid collisions. Okay, click on End Selection button and let's select our floor geometries. Okay, and I'm going to select this face as my floor. And remember, this is the roughing operation, so during the cut, the tool axis will be normal to the floor when you select the strategy offset from floor. I want to leave 0.2 stock on machine geometries as well as on the floor. And I'm going to use the strategy roughing, and I want my cuts to be offset from the floor. And for our example, I want to machine everything in one cut. I'm just trying to show you different methods of controlling your operation and toolpath. So remember, we had 0.5 mm here, okay, 0.5 millimeter, and we leave 0.2 stock on the machine geometries and the floor. Okay, so to get everything in one cut, I need 0.3 millimeter, because 0.3 plus 0.2 is 0.5. You can do 0.5, you can do anything that is greater than 0.3 to get one cut. If you use less than 0.3, it will generate another cut. My step over, I'm going to use 5 mm between the passes. And for my roughing operation, I'm going to relax tolerance a little bit. And of course, we leave 0.2 millimeter stock. So even if I change the tolerance to 0.05, it won't have any negative influence onto my result. Okay. Here, I'm going to leave that switched off. I want my strategy to be offset from floor, offset one way. I'm going to change to zigzag, so I want my cutting method to be zigzag. Okay, I'm going to leave that as a 1000 feed rate for the conventional cuts, and I want climb for one-way machining, and I'm going to select by levels. And because we have machining set to roughing, we do not have any options here in the tool axis control. Our strategy is offset from floor, so during the roughing, at each position that we are on the 3D model, our tool will be normal to the floor, which is 90 degrees. In the collision control, I'm going to activate both here. Okay, let's do some settings on the linking page, and I'm going to change the first entry to use ramp. And also I'm going to change to retract to the rapid distance between groups. I want to make sure that we will retract high enough to avoid those spigots and features on my 3D model. And let's change rapid distance to 40 mils. I'm not going to change anything on the roughing page at the moment. I'm going to leave approach moves as my default settings just now. Okay, let's go to additional setting page, and I'm going to show you the planes I'm using. So it's top, top, top. Let's generate the toolpath and see the result. And of course, I'm going to pause the video so you don't need to wait in front of your screen. And this is the toolpath we just generated. Okay, so let's go back quickly to our pocketing parameter settings. And I'm going to change slightly few things. Okay, first I wanted to have a look into those entry and those helicals entry. So let's go back to parameters and to roughing page. Yes, and I'm going to change the approach moves, the ramp type to line, and you have to give it an angle 90 degrees if you set it to line. And again, let's quickly regen the toolpath and see how that affected the result. So straight away you can see that we do not have anymore our helical entry, and our helical entry is replaced with the plunge type of entry. So we approach the job 90-degree, a straight line plunge type of entry. Okay, let's go back to parameters. Let's talk a little bit more about this operation. Let's start with stock page. So I selected one face and I expanded this stock on this face 0.5 millimeter. So as remember, I selected this face as my stock. Okay, so I gave it 0.5 millimeter, and Mastercam knows that the material is only on that one face. So this is one of the ways of telling Mastercam what you want to machine. Because when you activate the stock page, Mastercam will generate the toolpath only in the area where the stock is available on your 3D model. And we will be talking about different methods of controlling your area of cut in further examples. Okay, so remember we have 0.5 millimeter on this face, and when we go to cut pattern, I asked for a depth of cut 0.3, and because we leave 0.2 millimeter stock for the finishing operation, Mastercam will produce only one depth, and this is what I want. If you change that to, for example, 0.2, in the result you have 2 depths. Okay, as I mentioned, I added all those faces here around because I want Mastercam to know where are the other faces. Okay, and to be honest, I can select the whole 3D model. Okay, and the result is as you see here. So we have nothing here, we do not have any cuts on those faces around, just targeted this one face that I wanted to pre-finish. In the next example, I'm going to show you different method how you can target and limit the roughing area on your 3D model. So just quickly, I want to show you this, what I mentioned on this toolpath. We have this 0.5 mil stock here, expanded stock on that face, and in cut parameters we have 0.3. So 0.3 plus 0.2 is 0.5. Okay, and in the result we have one cut. In this one, as you see, we have 2 cuts, and again my stock is expanded 0.5 mil on that one face, on the same, everything is exactly the same, but the constant depth step I put 0.2. So 0.2 plus 0.2 is 0.4, so it is enough room for another pass. That's why in the result we have 2 passes, just in case you need this. Okay, in our next pre-finishing operation or next roughing operation using pocketing, I'm going to create quickly a stock model. So if you have Mastercam 2022, that's easy, okay? Because you can go to stock model, you can click on the model, select, and instead of selecting the whole 3D model, you can just select faces. So let's go and select those faces here around. Okay, and I want to add additional stock of, let's say, 1 millimeter. Okay, I'm not going to select anything here, just the stock model, just those faces around with the fillet, and I want to expand that 1 millimeter. Okay, let's see the result, and this is our stock. Okay. So note if I switch off my 3D model, I'll end up only with this. Okay. So this is my stock model. So let's go to toolpaths, and now I'm going to set my another roughing operation, and this time I want to rough this around. Okay, maybe even let's call it pre-finish. So multi-axis gallery, pocketing again. I'm going to use 20mm slot drill with 2mm rad again, but in stock I'm not going to use user selected geometry. This time I'm going to use a stock model, and from the drop down menu I can select number 1, which is this model here, stock model here. Okay, I don't want to expand that. In the cut pattern, let's select our part definition. Okay, so my machine geometries are all the faces around, and my floor geometry, I want to use this as my floor, and this time I'm going to leave only 0.1mm on the floor. Okay, and my pattern is going to be roughing again, and this time I want the strategy to be offset from the sailing. And when you select strategy to be offset from sailing, the shape of your sailing will control the tool axis, and your tool will be normal to the face that you select as your sailing. And because our sailing is like a 2D flat surface, in this example we won't be using any rotation during the roughing, during the cutting, and all our cuts will be X, Y motion, and in Z levels that will be the shape of our sailing. And I want this as my sailing. So let's see it again. So this face is my floor, and this I selected as my sailing. Okay, and now the strategy, I want offset from sailing, and I want that to be dynamic this time. I'm going to use one way because we'll be contouring this feature around. Zigzag won't be any good for me for this example. Also, you could use offset if you want. Cutting direction, I'm going to use climb, and I'm going to leave machine by levels because I'm machining only one feature. So my constant depth step, I'm going to use 5mm, and I'm going to add here every 2.5 another cut. Okay, or because we have only one pass on each depth, we could actually set it up here every 2.5. Okay, as a step over you can put whatever you want as long as it is bigger than 1mm, because we have 1mm stock around this feature, and I want to have only one pass on each depth. Because our machining type is set to roughing and strategy offset from sailing, we do not have any tool axis control settings available for us to set. All our cuts will be normal to sailing. Here, collision control, I'm going to switch off both of them. On the linking parameter page, I'm going to keep rapid distance at 40mm, and default links I'm going to leave as retract to rapid distance. And this way we will have enough height during the retract to avoid collisions. On this roughing page, I want to activate vertical arc leads, and this way we will have arc when we will enter on each depth, and we will have nice lead in and lead out on each pass, and it's going to be clearly visible on the toolpath. Okay, so as you see, the green arc represents the entry and the red arc represents the exit. Every pass has nice entry and exit. Okay, that will give us a nice base for the finishing operation. Okay, let's quickly run backplot to see the tool action. Okay, so this is our ceiling and all our cuts are parallel to the ceiling. And as you see, we do not have any tool axis rotation. Every depth level is an XYZ movement. Okay, in my next operation, I'm going to pre-finish this section. I'm going to rough this section here to prepare it for my finishing operation. And to avoid cutting fresh air, I'm going to prepare a stock model. So my stock model is going to be stock setup as an initial stock, and I want to process only 2 first roughing operations. Okay, this is my stock. In our next operation, I'm going to show you how you can control the tool axis during the cut using the tool axis surface. So we are going to create a surface, the shape we want our tool to be normal to, and then we will use it as our floor. So actually we are going to create like a false floor behind our part. And this is important. The floor that you're going to create, it has to be behind your machining features, okay? Because this is the deepest point of our roughing operation, the floor. Okay, so now let's quickly create that surface I need for my tool axis control. Okay, so I'm going to use a wireframe, circle. I'm going to draw a circle. I don't know, maybe let's do something like that. Okay, that'll be fine. And if you have Mastercam 2022, double click on the circle. If not, you have to cut it using Analyze Entity tool, or just cut it using trimming tools. So first I'm going to place it roughly here. Okay, and now I want my circle to be only from, let's say, this point to roughly this angle. Okay, and this is my arc, and this is what I'll be using to shape my surface. Okay, press escape to exit from the arc edit mode. And now I will also need a line. So first I'm going to switch my view plane and construction plane to front, and I'm going to create a vertical line. And I'm going to create this line a little bit longer. It will let me to create bigger surface. And it is only because I want you to see how I place this surface, and you can replicate this on your computer. So now I'm going to create quickly my surface, and actually I'm going to do something here. I'm going to create, okay, and to keep things organized, I'm going to move this geometry that I just created with the wireframe geometry for my surface to my new level tool axis surface. Okay, and now I'm going to select the surface tab, and I'm going to use an option sweep. Wireframe mode, single line. I want that shape over that distance. Okay, and at the moment my surface top is here. I don't want that to be my top. I want this, okay, to be my top. So click on the surface to flip it over. Okay, so I've got my surface now, and using the transform tool I'm going to place it in the right position. Dynamic. I'm going to use that, and let's point this. It'll be easier to operate. Now press on that, and we can move it wherever we want. So I want this, this, Okay, that'll be fine. So we've got our surface, and this will be my floor. So now let's quickly set our roughing operation. Okay, I can delete those lines here. So at the moment I've got everything I need to create my pocketing operation. Okay, so now let's set up our toolpath. So pocketing again, multi-axis pocketing, and I'm going to use 10mm ball nose end mill. Stock, I want to use this stock that I just produced from my roughing operations. Okay, so we won't have any air cuts. My cut pattern, triple click on the part, okay, or select the entire 3D model. My floor, I want this to be my floor. Okay, I'm going to leave only point 1 here, sorry, 1 button, and I'm going to use pattern machining as roughing, but I want my strategy to be offset from floor. I want my floor to control the tool axis and the shape of each layer. I'm going to leave offset for type of pattern. I want to go one way, and I want my cuts to be climb direction, and I'll machine by levels. I'm going to leave at the moment constant depth step as 5mm because I want to show you different things using different surfaces as your floor. Okay, I don't need this, so I'm going to switch off my intermediate slices, and I will use this containment option a bit later, but first I wanted to show you the result, how Mastercam would rough the whole top of the part using the floor that I selected. In the collision control page we set our collision avoidance. I'm going to keep check against machining geometries, and for this operation I'm not going to check against in process stock. You know how each option works, so you can decide if you need it or not. On linking parameter page we are going to change the rapid distance to 20mm, and I'm not going to use any ramping, so I'm going to change it to not use ramp. Let's move on to roughing page, and I'm going to keep the approach move as line 90 degree, and I will allow tool outside the stock. And this is it. Okay, let's see the result of this operation of using this floor here. And I'm going to pause the video because it's gonna take about 5 minutes to generate probably. Okay, so this is our toolpath. As you see, we went a bit farther than we wanted. We even plunged inside here. It is because Mastercam sees material everywhere, and we selected the whole 3D model as our machining surfaces. So I will use our containment boundary option inside the toolpath to limit the working area, and I'm going to create quickly another level, containment area, and from wireframe tab I'm going to select curve one edge, and I'm going to roughly mark the area I want my tool to be contained within. Okay, so this is the area roughly that I want to generate the toolpath in. So I'm going to create a few lines on the edges, and then I will trim everything together to get approximate area of work. I don't need to be too precise. And this, okay. Now I'm going to switch off visibility of my 3D model and the floor, or this tool axis surface, so you see how I create it. Okay, I'm going to extend lengths, let's say 5 mil, a bit more, and more here, and that should be enough. Okay, so now I'm going to actually remove this line and the other side, and I'm going to join everything together because the containment boundary has to be closed chain. Okay, freeform, and I'm going to use a line, and don't worry that you have some sharp corners like in my case. That will be enough. So this is how it looks on my 3D model. Okay, and now let's go back to toolpath, parameters, and then cut pattern page. I'm going to take containment, and as a containment I'm going to select that wireframe I just created. I'm going to use a wireframe and chain, and I'll press on that. Okay, now let's generate the toolpath and see what happened. Okay, and this is the result I was looking for. So this is my pre-finishing operation. Okay, so this was our stock. That is our surface. So as you see on the entry, you can see that is normal to the floor in each position. Okay, so actually if we run the back plot, you see that the toolpath is pointing towards the floor. Okay, so if we extend the tool, it will be normal 90° to the floor. Okay, so as you see, this is a very easy way how you can control the tool axis using a surface that you create behind your 3D model or behind your machining geometry, and control your tool angle during the machining or roughing. And before we finish, I wanted to show you that your false floor doesn't have to be a flat surface or curved surface. So in this example, I extruded a cylinder solid, created a body inside my part. I'm going to copy the first operation to the end, and I'm going to use all the parameters from my first toolpath, but I'm going to change only one thing, and it is the floor. And this is a very good example how you can actually machine or raft material on your mill turn. And now I'm going to change only one thing, so we're still using 20 mil. Stock, we still use the job setup. And I'm going to leave everything here as default, I mean as the same setting as on the first operation, but I'm going to change the floor. Okay, so I'm going to reselect the floor, and I'm going to check this only one surface. Okay, so and let's regenerate the toolpath. So we have now our toolpath ready. Okay, I'm going to quickly show you the simulation, the verify simulation, to show you how the tool is pointing towards this surface that I selected, the outside diameter of this cylinder. So as you see on this example here, we do not have any A-axis motion because it's just a cylinder that is driving our tool axis. Okay, so the tool is normal to the surface, so basically it's pointing towards the center of the part, we could say. And that would be all for today. There is a lot more to talk about roughing multi-axis pocketing operation, but I don't want to make a tutorial that is gonna last like 3 or 4 hours. Thank you guys for watching my tutorial, and hope that is gonna help you guys more in understanding this roughing operation using pocketing. And there's one more thing that I want to mention. I found out that some of the YouTubers are using my material and actually asking people to pay money for 3D models and for Mastercam material. I'm not really happy with this, and please do not use my free content to make money on. Actually, I do it in my own time, and I do it because I want to help young people, and I want to help all the engineers and future engineers, future offline programmers, and to help people understanding offline programming. So please do not charge money for my free content. Thank you.